I made my plan. I was going to blow up the mosque during Ramadan on Friday.
I was a fairly happy kid. I had friends. I liked to run the streets. In high school, I'd gotten in a lot of trouble.
These Muslims are trying to kill me. Everybody hates Muslims. That if I see a woman in a hijab, or if I see a man wearing sandals and he's dark skinned, don't trust him. Keep an eye on him. And even though I wanted to die, I wanted to hate somebody more. I wanted to hate somebody more. I didn't know if I needed to be closer or I needed, or if I was okay. But I sat over there, and the plan was to sit over there and wait. Dial it in. Just watch it.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Richard. Thank you for accepting our invitation. As Towards Eternity, we are very happy to have you with us. I want to start with, who is Richard McKinney? Can you tell us briefly about your life?
Very glad to be here. That's a complicated answer. But quickly, I was born in California. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, joined the military when I was 18. And from there, I traveled around, had a couple combat tours while I was there. I had Panama in 1989. Desert Shield and Desert Storm 1991, and in 92 and 93, I was in Somalia. And I got out, tried to be a civilian for 2 years. Then I joined the Army, where I eventually retired after I was wounded in Iraq in 2006. In 2009, I accepted Islam. I now attend a mosque in my hometown in Central Indiana, and now I just travel around and I speak to people, try to change the narrative.
How was your life before Islam? What were you believing in?
I grew up with a lot of Christian teachings, as most American children do. I knew about them, but to be honest with you, I was getting this nationalist ideology about me. Religion just didn't play a part. It seemed too mythological, too much hocus pocus, maybe, But I believed in my country, I tell people, for lack of a better example, the flag was my cross. That's the best way I can explain that.
And then what happened? Why did you decide to join the military?
As a teenager, I got involved in a lot of bad things, drugs, and I ran away from home. When I ran away from home, I ended up going and joining the Marine Corps. And I made a very wise decision to get away from all this bad element. I'm going to join the military.
How did this great hatred and anger against Muslims develop in you?
So one of the things that I did start to believe, and the way I believed it, I guess is a better way to say it, that Muslims were trying to kill me. So the last time I was injured, what forced me out of the military, we were in Ramadi in 2006, Ramadi, Iraq. And we did a real quick operation on this building. Somebody was supposed to be at a high-ranking, actually it was a high-ranking al-Qaeda member. And we went there, we were going to grab him and bring him back, hood over the head, zip ties, the whole bit. Well, he wasn't there. Nobody was there. I went up onto the second floor after it was cleared and we were getting ready to leave the building to look out onto the street to make sure everything was okay before I took my team back outside. It's the last thing I remember. There was a huge IED that was underneath the building, and it blew straight up and blew me right out the hole I was looking out of. It was a huge hole in the wall facing the street.
There was a bomb.
There was a bomb. And from what I was told, it blew me straight across the street. And I have no memory of it. So it's like, it's not real difficult for me to tell the story. I'm just telling what everybody told me because I don't remember. But it messed me up kind of bad. I had some injuries that I still have injuries because of it.
What happened to you after this incident? What were your thoughts?
There were so many things that were just compounded in your head that this is what all these people are doing. These Muslims are trying to kill me, And even though I wanted to die, I wanted to hate somebody more. I wanted to hate somebody more. And it was easy because at that time, common enemy. Everybody hates Muslims. So I'm back home now with all these thoughts, all this anger. And I says, there's something that I can do. And I devised a plan. Or I was still able to get a hold of different components that I could create my own bomb. And in the course of 3 years, that's what I did. I built this thing, the bomb. I took my time. As my planning went on, I was like, well, how am I going to get these guys? Sometimes not a lot of them show up. Ramadan on a Friday afternoon, they're all there. When I talk to Christians a lot of times, I said it's like the Catholics for Christmas Mass. You might not see them any other time of the year, but they'll be there at Christmas Mass.
Where exactly did you want to do it, and what was your plan?
So there was an Islamic center in my hometown. I didn't really know anything about these people. I'd see them. So I had watched this place before, and several different times, not just once. I watched it several different times and saw the flow of people on a Friday and just knowing the behavior of these people and what they're doing. So if I put a bomb here, are they going to find it? So I don't want that to happen. So I had found a place. Nobody ever, for some reason, until I became president of the Islamic Center, nobody walked around that building. Nobody. So on the back side, I found a good place for it. And I was going to put it there, middle of the night before. And there was a bank, I would say probably 2,500 meters away, which this was a roll of the dice because I wasn't sure because of the range. I didn't know if I needed to be closer or I needed, or if I was okay. But I sat over there, and the plan was to sit over there and wait for the time because I had found out what time they start. Just dial it in. Just watch it.
Weren't you afraid of the consequences of doing something like that? As towards eternity, we need your support. We are a charity organization that aims to spread the message of Islam to the entire world in 10 languages. With your support, you can help people convert to Islam, give up harams, start praying, wear hijab, learn to read the Quran, and so on. And get your share from all these good deeds, inshallah. Donate to Towards Eternity and don't miss this golden opportunity. Weren't you afraid of the consequences of doing something like that?
I was going to make a big statement. Now, a lot of people think that's crazy on so many different levels because how are you going to get away with that? I had no intention of getting away with it. I knew I was going to be caught. I knew I would go to trial because they would execute me. I was good with that because I wasn't getting my flag draped coffin, but I believed that eventually these same people were going to think of me as a hero because I was right. So then I went into the mosque one day. I had already done recon, and found the best place to put this and everything, with the knowledge that I had of explosives. And my daughter had told me about this Muslim child that she was in school with, and I blew up. So I thought I failed my family because I couldn't protect them. I can't protect her at school from these Muslims. That was my whole thing. I just totally lost it. And my daughter, 7 years old, is looking at me like I've just lost everything. And she was, the look in her eyes was like she was even questioning whether she even loved me anymore because I was being so racist or so, against these one people just because they looked a certain way or they did a certain thing. That was it. After different profanities came out of my mouth and, calling them all kinds of racial slurs, I guess is the best way to put it, I went up into my bedroom. I kind of sat on the bed and I started to cry a little bit. I said, well, you have to find the proof, man. You know you're right. I believed in myself I was right because they're evil. They want to kill us all, right? But I didn't have any kind of tangible proof to show my daughter. I didn't have that. So I had to go get it. Where am I going to get it? The mosque. Where else? I did not want to be in that place. So of course I'm a little nervous. I try to keep my composure. Obviously now, after I found out and heard from some of the people there that I didn't do a very good job at that because they could tell I was nervous, I was frustrated, and I went in there, I met with them, and I introduced myself as somebody who just wants to learn a little bit more about Islam. Not a total lie, but didn't tell them what my real intentions were. So, I was introduced to several people, talked to several people. It was a Friday. Again, I went on Friday because I knew they'd be there. I listened to the sermon, the khutbah, right? And I was like, man, that sounds good. They're just saying that because I'm here. I already know. They probably got people held down in the basement for propaganda videos. I already know. I mean, these are the things that are going through my mind, right? And then they handed me a Quran. And I was told to take it home, read it, come back when you have questions. I was so happy because in my mind, I felt like I'd just been handed the holy grail of evil, and I'm going to have somebody explain it to me. Wow, that's better than hitting the lottery. I mean, isn't it? It take no effort on my part. So I did. I did just that. I read it, and I went back. I was back a lot. Surprised him, because here's this non-Muslim coming in. He's all in here all the time. I've been reading. I got these questions. You say come back and ask you. And after a while, it finally came to me that all religions have some sort of a text. And that text is a guidebook to how they're supposed to live their lives, right? To direct them in the certain direction, right? And you're to live as close to that as you can. So I'm reading the things in the Quran. And my impression of Islam is the people that have been shooting at me and seeing all the horrible things that they were doing, right? It didn't match. But these people in here in Muncie, Indiana, were actually, I could make examples of things that they were doing that was in the Quran to do. So they are and they aren't. Never been called an intellectual person, but a light bulb came on. Obviously, the ones who I had gotten my impression of Islam from were a bad example. That's not Islam. This is more like Islam. So I started to change a little bit. But then I went through stages. Maybe these are the good Muslims. I've heard there's some good Muslims. Maybe these are the ones. Maybe these are the good ones. And as I'm getting introduced to other Muslims and doing research and looking online and watching both good and bad YouTube videos, because back then they still had the real bad ones, and watching this and comparing it with what's in the scripture here, all those bad videos, they come from a place of hate. There's no relevance to what is in the book and what they're saying. There's no relevance. Oh, man. So I just kept reading and kept reading. My ill feelings started to slowly dissipate. They just went away. And, I get to certain passages in the Quran, like 532, kill one human being is as if you had killed all of humanity. No. Indiscriminate killing was going on by these people that I had taken my impression of Islam. Wow. Okay. Keep reading. And then, get to certain other passages. Allah made us into different nations and tribes so that we may learn from one another, not despise one another. Oh, okay. I can see that right here because this person is involved with local government and Rotary Club and all these other organizations. Oh, okay. I get that. So it started to all go this way.
So what was the main thing that convinced you that Islam is 100% the truth?
Yeah, so I realized that Islam was really the thing for me through my readings of the Quran and the explanations I got. And I didn't take their word for it. Now, when they would tell me that's what this means, I would go back and I'd research it. So reading the Quran and having the feeling that it is touching me. It is I'm reading these words, but I'm feeling them too.
So when did you actually say, I have to become a Muslim?
The dreams I had with the blood on the paper target. I was on the rifle range, where you practice shooting, okay? And I was shooting a paper target way down there. And it had been a source of looking at my enemies, dehumanization, right? I was dehumanizing my enemies because they were just targets. That was one way of coping with the whole taking of human life, right? And I remember one of the last dreams I had was this paper target started bleeding. I went down and wiped it off. It kept bleeding and kept bleeding and bleeding. And it was at that point I decided I need to be a Muslim because now I see my humanity is coming back. I didn't have humanity for a long time. I didn't even know what it was. It came back. And I saw Islam and the teachings from Allah and the examples given by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It gives me something. It gives me an understanding of who, what, when, where, and why. It answered those questions for me, man. And I couldn't have been happier. It was the best decision I've made as an adult.
And when you decided to take Shahada, where did you go first?
Yeah. So this is a funny story. So this whole picture of a lot of Christians throughout the years have had this belief that, if Muslims capture you, they're going to hold a sword to your throat and tell you to convert or they're going to kill you, right? I go back to the Islamic Center on a Friday and I meet two guys, two of the original guys that I was introduced to that I'd gotten kind of built a relationship with now. And I went up to them and I says, hey, I want to take Shahada. True story. They're standing side by side. They look at each other. They look back at me. Simultaneously, they go, no. True story. Oh my gosh. And I was blown away. I was like, what do you mean no? They said, brother, you got more to learn. So they look back at each other. They look back to me. All right, come on. True story. It was quite an experience. As we were going through it, said it in English, and then we went through and said it in Arabic. And as I'm reciting it in Arabic, as best I can, because, I have like less than an elementary education in Arabic. And I just felt like this huge weight, man. This is God lifted off of me. I stood there. I just held out my hands, man. I was like, I don't really know how to explain it. It was renewal. I got a new life now. Wow.
Did you tell them that you were going to blow up that place?
That happened by a third party. So I went to college later in life. I'd already spent all this time, like 40 some odd years old, and I'm a freshman in college. Okay. Being older and having all this life experience that I had a different relationship with my professors than, say, the 20-something students, right? We were actually more friends than we were professor and student. And I was sitting in one of my professor's offices one afternoon. We were drinking coffee, and I don't know why it even came up. I told the professor the story, and she just stood there, and she was just blown away. She was like, whoa. She goes, you need to tell that story. That could change people's lives. I'm like, really? She goes, what are you doing this afternoon? I said, well, as soon as I finish this coffee, I was going to go home. She said, no. You got my next class. You're going to tell that story. So I did. Well, somebody in the class decided, wait a minute. This guy knows how to make a bomb, and now he's a Muslim. Oh, no. We need to call somebody. So we did. He called the FBI. Right? Called the FBI. Yeah, I'm not upset about it all. But this is after the fact. The bomb's gone. I'd already disposed of it, right? Because contrary to popular belief, I am a Muslim and I don't need a bomb, okay? So there's no evidence, really, right? They did find trace evidence, actually, from a bomb dog, that there had been an explosive there, that was it. Because I took them to where I had it stored. After that happened, then everybody started to find out. Matter of fact, that's when my wife found out. I didn't tell anybody about this. I was the only one that knew anything about it, because this is going to be all me. Pure ego. I'm doing this. Nobody else. Plus, I knew the more people knew, greater the chance of me not being able to carry this out. So she found out I was handcuffed and sitting on the front lawn of my house when her and my daughter pull up. They drove up to the house. I'm sitting there in the front yard. So they handcuffed me to basically have control. It's procedure. It's kind of wrong in a way, because legally you are under arrest once handcuffs go. They tell you you're not, but you really are legally, just so they have you controlled if something was to happen. That's when my wife and my daughter pull up in the car. They get out. They didn't know what to think. And then people at the mosque started finding out. They started hearing stories. Well, plus it was in the newspaper. So then I was confronted. I was invited to dinner at one of the founding families' houses, and there was other Muslims there. And I was just happy to be there, and all of a sudden, and then Bibi Barami is the one who asked me. She goes, Brother Richard, what is this we hear about you were going to blow up the Islamic Center? I was so ashamed at that point, because these people had taken me in. They had no reason to. Knowing I was a soldier, knowing I had been to countries they come from, so they knew some of the things that I had done. But they took me in anyway. They accepted me, right? And I just sat there and I told them all the truth. So this is what I was going to do. And I looked at all of them and said, it's because of you that I didn't. You showed me. I even told her, I said, let's put Islam aside for a second. Y'all showed me what humanity was. And that saved all our lives. They were shocked but happy. A couple of the brothers came up and hugged me and stuff like that, and which I was still getting used to, because I didn't like the whole hugging thing. I'm like, whoa, dude, distance, man, distance. But it was kind of surreal. This just put in, like, nailed it. This is why I'm doing this. These people care, man. They care. They care because that's the way they were raised, because they were raised by teachings in the Quran.
How was your family affected by your conversion to Islam, and what was their reaction?
They did. And there's actually a funny story to that, because after I took Shahada, again, I'm still not telling my wife nothing, right? She knows I'm going to the mosque, but she doesn't know what to think now. And so I go there and I take Shahada. I come home and I just plop down on the couch, kind of like, I just got back from work, something like that, right? And she goes, so is everything okay? Because she's worried that I'm going to do something, right? She has no idea. And I said, no, everything's great. She goes, okay. I looked at her and says, I'm a Muslim. This is another true story. Funny, but it's very true. So she said, what? I said, yeah, I took Shahada. She goes, you sure what? And so in my infant knowledge of Islam, right, I tried to explain it to her the best way I could, right, using examples of, like, baptism, okay? And she's like, she didn't know what to think. She stood there and she said, well, I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm not putting anything around my head. All right. Well, you're not a Muslim, so I didn't even think that was a conversation. It's all right. And then she comes back a little while and says, and another thing, if you want more than one wife, I'm not going to be one of them. And I was like, I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I'm not sure I want this one. So she takes Shahada. We leave the university. I'm still kind of blown away, but I like to joke. I like to joke. So I looked at her and I said, I was driving and I looked at her and I said, so you're a Muslim now. About that more than one wife thing. She looked over at me with this mean look on her face and said, don't make me pull this car over. I said, I'm driving. How are you going to pull the car? I'm driving. She goes, I'll pull it over. So I was like, yeah, that's cool. Matter of fact, Dr. Sabil is the one who gave her Shahada. Yes. He was visiting Muncie. He gave a lecture at the university there, and my wife and daughter went with me. And I guess there was questions that she needed answers to that I couldn't answer. And that night, he answered them. So they both took Shahada. I was, like, blown away.
When you look back at your journey of transformation, what do you think about it?
I hated myself because of all the stuff that I'd done. On the outside, acting like everything I'd done was for the right reasons. But deep down inside, I knew it wasn't. I really knew that. I would never have admitted it, but I knew it. And it was eating me up. It was, I was definitely a prime candidate for suicide at that time. In the documentary, Stranger at the Gate, there's a photo of these guys in black uniforms, stuff all over their face, whatever. That was my team. I'm the only one still alive in that team. So everyone in that team had gotten out of the military and had committed suicide. And I felt that way for so long. And like I said, I went back into the military. I got out for 2 years and went right back into the military because there wasn't anything here, and I would have ended up just like those guys. And this is, again, I have to, this is all Allah working. This is all Allah working. When I first became a Muslim, I asked that question. Why did you make me go through all that? Why? You could have just took me to a bookstore and found a copy of the Quran and started reading it, man, anything, right? Why did I have to do all that? And of course, that's one of those none of your business kind of things, right? But I finally come to the understanding that because of who I was mentally, I was such this in-your-face kind of guy, I had to go through all that to be where I am right now because it wouldn't have stayed with me, Because now I have another mission, Now I do have a destiny. I have a purpose now. And I feel like I understand that.
Lastly, if there was a chance to speak to all the non-Muslims in the world, what would you like to say to them if you had a few moments?
So, and I've thought about this for a long time, actually, is what would I say if I was ever confronted by non-Muslims, like wanting answers? I'd say, first thing, take a breath. Take a breath. These feelings you have aren't real. Take a breath. Read the Quran. Just read it. Even if you do not become a Muslim, you will gain wisdom from the words in the Quran, because that's the way the book works.